Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Happy Wednesday, or whatever day of the week it is. Today's story is from the Asbo History of Britain. Haven't done one of those for a while. And it's called Sir Francis Drake and the Armada Language School. Francis Drake was the man of his day. By the 1580s, the fearless adventurer and sea dog had plundered Spain's harbours and colonies around the world, seized ships full of South American gold and silver, circumnavigated the globe, claimed California for England, and been knighted by Queen Elizabeth on board his ship, the Golden Hind. Every man wanted to be in his crew, and many ladies would giggle coyly at him, but one day in 1588 everything changed. After a busy few months of raising hell on the high seas, Drake docked his ship at Chatham, and his crew went their separate ways to spend their plunder on a summer of beer and women. Drake himself headed for Plymouth, where he planned to spend an afternoon with an infamous woman of ill repute, known only as the Plymouth Ho, who had a reputation as a girl who would do just about anything for a gentleman who took her 10-pin bowling at the local Bow-me-over lanes. Drake galloped his horse down to Plymouth, gave himself a quick squirt of fine cologne that he'd plundered from a Spanish galleon, picked up the Plymouth Ho, and trotted straight to Bow-me-over. However, something was clearly amiss. Although Drake paid admission for them both, held doors open for her, bought her drinks and sweets, and impressed her by scoring several strikes, he sensed that the Plymouth Ho wasn't that interested. Undeterred, he paid for another game, after which he bought lunch, sat next to her, stretched and put his arm around her, only to have her slap his hand away. At last Drake could take no more and confronted her. "I am the greatest maritime adventurer in the world," Drake cried, "and yet you are not attracted to me. Is it the cologne? I knew it was a bit poncy, but that Spanish bastard assured me that—" "No, sir," interjected the Plymouth Ho. "You're most charming and kind, and you smell very nice, but it's almost August, and the Spanish are coming." "They're coming with an army to invade?" asked Drake. "Why do I not know this?" "Not an invasion, silly. The Armada Language School," said the Plymouth Ho. "Hundreds of thousands of Spanish students are coming to England for the summer to learn English, and loads of them are staying in Plymouth. My word, but they are sexy and romantic. They're so dark and handsome. I can't wait to do with one of them under the pier. They won't even have to take me bowling." Drake's hand shot to the hilt of his rapier. "I should cut you down for your insolence," he growled. "I, Sir Francis Drake, am several quid out of pocket, and have spent the whole afternoon in a bloody bowling alley, and you have not given me as much as a kiss with tongues. I shall finish this game, and then I shall thrash the Armada Language School, and then you will put out." But even as he spoke, the Plymouth Ho let out a great squeal, for there on the horizon were the ships of the Armada Language School, hundreds of them. They gave off an eerie yellow glow from the thousands of neon rucksack-wearing language students that swarmed their decks in parties of 30 or more. Below him, Drake could see all the girls of Plymouth making their way to the seafront to welcome the invaders. He leapt on his horse and spurred it all the way back to London, where he rounded up his crew. "Gentlemen," cried Drake, "we must defeat the Spaniards ere they shag all the women, including good Queen Bess." To a roar of approval, the Golden Hind put out to sea to meet the enemy head-on for a sea battle. To their horror, however, they reached Plymouth to find that the Armada Language School had already landed. They were too late, and would now face a terrible land battle against a numerically superior foe. Drawing their swords, the Englishmen rushed off the Hind and on to the beach, but found that they could barely move for the number of language students. They were everywhere, milling around in large huddles, shouting, screaming, and playing frisbee, without regard for any of the poor locals, who could do little but tut disapprovingly under the onslaught. Wherever the English turned, they found more of their foe, many playing rock chords on battered guitars, with their friends cheering them on. On the seafront, the Spaniards besieged shops, attempting to buy booze underage, and laughed at the shopkeepers who refused them. Worse, the girls of Plymouth were absolutely lapping it up. Drake held his rapier aloft and laid a valiant charge. He only managed to get a few yards before he tripped over the size 15 shoes of one 7-foot-tall student, who sniggered cruelly at the English hero as he lay in the sand. The day seemed lost. If the students could be split into smaller groups, they could be dealt with, but their numbers were too great. Already several local girls had been chatted up by the invaders, and one was already heavy petting with a young man in a bandana under the pier. Drake's group battled their way to the shops on the seafront to regroup, where they hunkered down just outside a store that sold penknives and drug paraphernalia to make their next move. Just then, Drake spotted an ice cream cart and had a flash of inspiration. As fast as they could, Drake and his men loaded the ice cream cart with as many bongs, pipes, outside cigarette papers and comedy lighters as they could, throwing in a few T-shirts with marijuana leaf designs and several lit firecrackers for good measure. Then they rolled the cart straight into the mass of language students. As the students heard the firecrackers going off and spotted the super cool contents of the cart, pandemonium broke out. Every one of them wanted the contents of the cart and set about trying to grab it. By now the cart was travelling too fast for any of them to halt it. Although several threw themselves under the wheels, the cart rolled straight over them and onto the pier. The language students followed the cart in a great mass, whooping and yelling and waving their guitars over their heads. Suddenly there was a great creaking and groaning from the pier. Overloaded with language students, it swayed left and then right before giving way completely, coming down with a crash into the sea. Not a single language student was left on the beach. "You wankers!" screamed the girls who ran down to the sea, only to find that the students of the Armada Language School had perished to a man. Drake and the men of England were triumphant. "Now to find that Plymouth Ho," said Drake with a hearty chuckle. Smug with victory, he made his way to the bowling alley, treated the Plymouth Ho to a huge bucket of ice cream, and promenaded her back to his lodgings as the townspeople cheered and applauded. "Strike!" smiled Francis Drake. The end. Don't forget to like and subscribe and press the wee bell notification. And a huge big thank you to all my subscribers, patrons and members. See you next week. Bye bye.